Well, Grace, thank you so much for helping my project, especially at the last moment. And anyway, could you say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Grace Graham. I'm a senior at Utah State University, and I'm getting a dual major in both mechanical engineering with an emphasis in aerospace and a dual major in economics. I am, I guess, not technically slated, I don't know what the right word is, but I've accepted an offer to work at a business development internship at ABL Space Systems this coming summer, summer 21. And last summer, I worked for United Launch Alliance as the mechanical team's Atlas V booster intern. And then the summer previous, I worked at the Aerospace Corporation as a navigation and geopositioning systems engineer. So I've done kind of a lot in space. It's
That's
kind of a passion of mine, I would say.
that's awesome. And when did that passion get started for you?
So I think I've always been pretty passionate about space, the same way that most people are. You know, you go outside, you look at the stars, you think they're cool, or you go to a planetarium and you see little mock-ups of the planets, and it's like, look, that's Saturn. It's so cool. It has rings. Um, so I was always really interested in space, but I didn't even know that engineering was really a thing until I was probably, 17 or 18, and I went to an engineering summer camp at a university in Utah, and I was introduced to the concept of engineering, and I only went because my friend was going. She had signed up and my mom said, Grace, you should go. And I said, I don't want to be an engineer. Don't they like drive trains? And she said, no, and you don't know what you want to do, so you should probably go figure it out. And I said, fine, okay. And I went, and it turned out to be everything that I'd ever loved to do as a kid. And so that was when I kind of set my sights on mechanical engineering. And then I got a scholarship to Utah State. And that's when I found out that aerospace engineering was a thing. I was looking at the majors they offered, and one of them was aerospace engineering. And I said, you can do that? What? I can go to school for that? Heck yeah, I'm going to go to school for that. Um, I also forgot to mention I'm a Brooke Owens fellow. I'm class 2019. And so that was a massive kickoff to my career as someone in the aerospace industry.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you had heard about that, but I mean, you seem like the uh, poster person for a brookie.
Thank you. I try to kind of live up to that legacy of being, a kind and inclusive person as well as being passionate about space, because you can be both. In fact, you should be both, but it's a fun group to
Absolutely.
be. Yeah, it's definitely a fun group to be a part of.
Um, well, I think a lot of people in elementary school get really excited about space and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to be an astronaut," and they also get very excited about dinosaurs, which is kind of I'm not sure how to.
I love dinosaurs. What the heck?
But somewhere along the way, a lot of people lose their interest, like middle school and high school and college, and I think a lot of people, space isn't like a possibility or reality, or it seems like a niche type of thing for them. And I was
Yeah.
wondering if you observed that too with like some of your peers and other people you've known.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing that happens is that there's always, this is something that I've experienced a lot. I tell people what I work on and what I'm passionate about. And I mean, at the end of the day, people say, oh, you must be so smart to be able to do that stuff. You must be so smart. Oh my gosh, like you have to be so smart to do that. And it's like, honestly, like I have some critical thinking skills and I can, kind of do math. But honestly, I mean, I think that is the barrier to entry for a lot of people, is that they assume you have to be some sort of genius to work in space, or that you have to be an engineer or a scientist or an astronomer, or you have to have a PhD, and just none of those are true. Um, I always think it's really funny because people will say, oh my gosh, you must be so smart. You're so smart. And then I'm like, well, you haven't really hung out with me. I actually am kind of dumb sometimes. And it just takes that passion. It just takes a little bit of stubbornness. Um, just the matter of not letting it go. So I think as kids, you know, there's always there's the quote, it's not rocket science. And you say that to say like, you don't need to be that smart to do it. Um, but I just think that there are so many places for people in aerospace that aren't rocket science. In fact, rocket science isn't really even a thing. there's no such thing as a rocket scientist. You're either, you do propulsion engineering, or you do, systems engineering, or you do like structural stuff, or you do, there's specific little jobs for everyone along the way. And what's really interesting is that you can have, you can have a journalism major and still be in the space industry. You can have a marketing major, or you can be a business major. And if you like space, there's a place for you. But I don't think people realize that. And it's kind of frustrating to like see people give up on their dreams of working in space and exploring space just because they don't think they're smart enough. When that's not it. It's just about the passion and about having a little bit of stubbornness to you.
I know. I mean, these enterprises need accountants, they need auditors, they need,
Yeah,
kind of supply room clerks, people deliver
yeah,
packages from here to there,
yeah,
baristas, cafeteria
yeah.
service workers.
Yeah, this summer at United Launch Alliance, there weren't only, there were a couple of mechanical engineering interns. It was me and a couple of friends. We were the mechanical engineering interns, but there was a quality engineering intern. There was a safety intern. There was a finance intern. There was a supply chain intern. These people had never worked in space before, but they got a job at ULA because they were kind of passionate about space. And I was really inspired by them because they would come to us, the engineering interns, and say, hey, I want to learn more about the propulsion systems on this rocket. Will you tell me about them? Or we would go and we would, be standing underneath the rocket, looking at the nozzles and stuff and just geeking out about how cool it was to be right next to a rocket. And the finance people, the finance intern was even more passionate about it than we were, because we were kind of used to seeing it, in models and working with it every day. But he would come by and it would kind of almost reignite my spark, with how passionate I am about space, seeing how passionate he was about it. And so, yeah, you need finance, you need journalism, you need marketing, you need supply chain, you need all of those things, because it's just like any other industry, except for, we're cool and we go to space. So,
Yeah, indeed. And kind of like one thing you said about whenever these other people who aren't working on the rocket every day get a chance to sort of see it, and it reigniting your passion for it. I have a friend that is a, let's see, I guess, program engineer over at Lockheed Martin working on Orion. And he kind of expressed the same thing to me as well. For him, it's just like a day's work, lots of pressure, deadlines, you don't have all the time or resources you want. And, sometimes you get really beaten down just trying to deliver these projects, and they're like high risk, high visibility, all these
yeah,
things.
yeah, you definitely can be caught up in the day to day, that's for sure. I know that when I did my internship at Aerospace Corporation, it was really cool. I was writing code that would model and simulate certain GPS satellites in orbit. And it would do a bunch of different things, or like modeling how other satellites talk to GPS satellites. And so I was doing a lot of really cool stuff. But at the end of the day, I just felt like I was just writing code. And it's crazy to think about that, space is so cool and it inspires so many people, and you can be so close up that you forget how cool it is. And so every now and then, especially, it wasn't hard to remember this summer because I was right next to the Atlas V rocket that launched Mars 2020, which was amazing. Um, but it's always good to have the reminder that you're working on something that will change the world, or something that will keep the world going, really. It's one of those basic necessities now where if we didn't have it, we would be really upset. But when we do have it, we don't notice it. And that's when you know that it's become super ingrained in our culture, or in our society. It's become super ingrained to the point where if we didn't have it, we wouldn't know how to operate. But with it, we don't even notice that it's there.
Yeah, it's like air.
Yeah,
Yeah,
seriously. Yeah, without it, we would be really upset.
I know, but
But
we just like assume it's always going to be there.
yeah, just expected at this point. It's taken for granted, but it's still such a cool thing.
So when did you find out we were going to the moon? I guess going to the moon.
When did I find out that we were going to the moon in 2024? I found out about that, oh, probably summer of 2019, because that's when I really first started to become ingrained in the aerospace industry. Um, that summer, actually, we had a luncheon with Jim Bridenstine as Brooke Owens Fellow, so that was really cool to hear from him, about, his rigor in getting the space program up and running like full force again to get us back to the moon in 2024, the first woman and next man. And he was very adamant about making sure that we knew that there was going to be a woman on that mission. But I think that was the first time that I'd heard about it, and it just blew my mind that, I mean, if I'm speaking honestly, it's really incredible to believe that we're going to go back to the moon without some sort of outside force pushing us. Like, not the only reason that we went to the moon in 69, but one of the biggest reasons we went to the moon was because we wanted to beat out the Russians in the Cold War in the space race. And so obviously a nation united against a common enemy is going to do some crazy things. And we were able to accomplish amazing things together. And it was a really awesome proof to us of, or even just to all of humanity, how many things we can accomplish if we just put our heads together. But a lot of times people need that outside motivation. And so a part of me wonders what our motivation is now other than just going back. But I really hope that it happens by 2024 and that we can stay on that schedule, because it would be really, really incredible for all of humanity to go back.
Well, I mean, do you think China is maybe providing some of that motivation?
Possibly. I mean, there's always discontent or discord between the nations, especially Japan, China, and Russia. I know that when I worked at Aerospace Corporation, one of our biggest things that we talked about when we had, company-wide meetings was staying number one in space. We have to stay number one in space because it's a national security threat. And so we really need to stay on top of, our stuff in space to make sure that nobody surpasses us. And so it might be driven by that, but I don't think it's driven to the extent that it was back in the, 1960s. But that's a good point. I mean, there are a lot of people who have been going to the moon lately. I know that a couple years ago, India that sent their probe to the moon and it never landed? Or it did, but it was a little bit catastrophic. It wasn't a controlled landing, which was just heartbreaking to see, because we always love to see other people succeed in space, as someone who's deeply rooted in mostly commercial space and civilian space rather than military. But yeah, who was it that sent the little tardigrades to the moon? It was either China or India that
No,
accidentally sent tardigrades.
I think it was the Israelis, and
It was the Israelis. That's right.
I don't think it was accident either.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. That was crazy. That was some crazy space drama. I remember learning about that. That was nuts.
But what do you think about that, sending tardigrades to the moon?
I definitely don't think it was a good idea. Just because of, there's a whole sector that people can actually major in doing planetary protection. And it's not only protecting, planets from being destroyed, but it's protecting them from being, what's the word I'm looking for? It's protecting them from being compromised. Yeah, or tampered with. Because there's so many things about each planet. Every planet is so delicate. Every celestial body is so delicate in its system that when you introduce new things that it's not used to, it's, it can be super detrimental to science. And so, if those tardigrades end up surviving and they reproduce, then how would we ever know that there weren't tardigrades on the moon to start out with? Because we've never really sent a mission there like that, or at least in certain parts of the moon. And so, yeah, it can totally change the structure of that celestial body, and that is a massive detriment to us and a lot of scientists finding out, the origins of these planets, or the origins of these celestial bodies, or the origins of where we as humans came from in a universal timescale. So I don't know how much I liked that they sent tardigrades, but it also was kind of cool to think that there are tardigrades on the moon. I can't deny that part.
And would you believe that most people don't know we're going back to the moon in 2024?
Well, for me, where space is my whole life, it actually is it's surprising that people don't know, but I think going back to the original point that I had, that a lot of people don't think they can be in space or in, the space industry unless they're engineers. It goes back to that point. We don't have a lot of marketing people, not as many as we need. in the space industry. And the Artemis program, I feel like, isn't spending nearly as much time as they should marketing that this is going to happen. Maybe it'll happen, you know, in like 2022 or 2023 when it's starting to get closer. But yeah, I honestly, I can't, I feel like part of me is surprised that people don't know, but then a part of me really isn't surprised because it's kind of a quiet industry right now, except for Elon Musk. Elon Musk has brought so much marketing and so much noise to the aerospace industry. That's one thing I can respect him a lot for is how much excitement he's brought back to the aerospace industry. And there are a lot of people who want to get into the aerospace industry because they want to work for SpaceX because of what they're doing. Um, but yeah, I mean, most companies, like ULA as well, they don't spend time on marketing because they don't need to. I mean, if you're a space behemoth, you know, if you're this entity that has taken over and not monopolized, but really been the primary um, corporation in your field, then why would you need to market if everyone already knows you or all the important people know you? And so it's really, I think, kind of a hidden industry. I mean, people know it's there, but a lot of people still think that NASA launches rockets. And so when I told them I worked on rockets, that they said, "That's so cool, you're working for NASA." And I said, NASA hasn't launched rockets since the space shuttle. I mean, they don't launch rockets anymore. They launched payloads and they help develop technology that launches, but we're still working on SLS. I mean, NASA hasn't launched another rockets for a long time. And so people see space and they think either SpaceX or NASA, when it's really, there are so many more players in the game now, but nobody knows.
I know. Who'd have thought that the only two countries in the world that would have a private capability to send things into orbit would be the U.S. and New Zealand.
Really, I know. Isn't that funny? I mean, the US, sure, because we're always kind of trying to push the forefront of technology, but I was so pumped when I learned about Rocket Labs coming out of New Zealand. So cool. So cool. I love Peter Beck's story on how he started Rocket Lab. It's really inspiring.
Yeah, I saw a video one time with him with a rocket bike that he had done early on, like way before Rocket Labs. He's apparently always been like a daredevil type person.
Good for him, honestly. I mean, the people who have started commercial space industries, especially in the launch sector. I mean, those people are really, really incredible. To name a few, obviously, I mean, Peter Beck, Richard Branson, not only has started the space, or his, you know, Virgin Orbit and Virgin Galactic, but he is just, I mean, he's so well known for just kind of going with the flow and really starting crazy companies and just kind of following whatever he wants to do. And he does it successfully a lot of the time, which is super inspiring. Tory Bruno is another great CEO. He's the CEO of ULA, and he's starting to get more into. He's trying to push the initiative of opening up, you know, knowledge about space to people. So he's on Twitter every day, responding to anybody who asks him a question. It's really cool to see. Um, there are so many great leaders in the aerospace industry, so many cool people. And I think it's a massive part of that is the fact that you do have to be stubborn and passionate to be in space. And so if you're going to be the CEO of a space company, you're going to have those traits and you're going to care a lot about the people who are in that industry as well. As long, I mean, for a lot of them, it's they care not only about everyone in there, but especially the people who care about getting to space as much as they do.
Yeah, I think that's been kind of like a lot of people's complaints about like Boeing and Lockheed Martin, um, and maybe to some degree about ULA, is that it really feels like it's more about maximizing revenue and profits and keeping that continual train flowing, and that like the
Mm-hmm.
leaders of those companies, and maybe Tory Bruno is an exception, really are more interested in quarterly numbers as opposed to actual opening up space for humanity. But then you like look at Blue Origin, you look at Rocket Labs, you look at SpaceX, you look at Astrobotic and Intuitive
Mm-hmm.
Machines, and dozens of other companies, and you're like, these people are really, I mean, they want to go like even if you if you paid them to stop, uh, they would consider that failure, you know.
Yeah,
They,
no, they wouldn't stop. It wouldn't take money to stop.
yeah,
Um, I definitely think. I mean, yeah, there's so much passion behind every aerospace venture, but I mean, a big part of ULA. I mean, having worked there this summer, I definitely may be a little bit biased, but I've always loved ULA. I've always loved their mission of, I mean, it's their slogan is America's Right to Space, and it has been for decades. Not for decades, almost decades, because ULA became the joint venture between Lockheed Martin and Boeing in the early 2000s, I believe. Um, Tory Bruno became CEO in 2014, I think, and since then it's kind of been a game changer. And honestly, it really does at least seem that he really cares about, keeping space, first of all, safe, so that you can, be confident in sending missions to space without having them blow up on the rocket. I mean, that's one of the most important parts, is just getting them to the right orbit. But then secondly, making sure that the people who care about space are cared for and, heard. Um, with Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, I mean, it's incredible that they have these second ventures or their first ventures so that space can be their second venture. I mean, Blue Origin's never going to go away because Jeff Bezos will always have a stream of money coming from Amazon. Um, and same with Elon Musk. I mean, he's got so many other ventures, including Tesla, that he can pull money from those ventures and put them into SpaceX. So the thing with a lot of these companies, and one of the reasons why I admire Rocket Labs so much is that, or Rocket Lab, is that, it wasn't, a lot of them weren't started by billionaires. And so they have to really work hard for their money to be able to stay in business so that they can provide a right to space. And that's where I think that's more of the category that ULA falls into, because they don't necessarily get subsidies or they don't get money from Boeing and Lockheed. Actually, Boeing and Lockheed both take a share from their profits. And so they make enough money providing safe rideshare to a bunch of different companies and to the government and to NASA and to JPL to keep that dream alive. They make enough money to keep that dream going so that they can get more people to space safely and securely. Um, but yeah, it's really incredible that Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are, nerdy enough to have started their own space companies and dumped so much money into them. It's really changed the game and pushed companies like ULA and Rocket Lab to be more innovative and to find new ways to be relevant in the industry, which is so cool. So cool.
and Tory Bruno, he was really pitching the idea of having kind of a reusable second stage that would stay in orbit. I forgot the name of that.
Um, I'm not sure. I know that their second stage now is called Centaur, and they're working on a Centaur 5 for the new Vulcan rocket that ULA is building. Um, and I know that they've definitely considered reusability, but I wasn't on the design side, so I never got to see any of that. My main focus was the Atlas 5 rocket and making sure Mars 2020 got to orbit or got to Mars safely or gets to Mars safely. So
Yeah.
yeah. One thing that was really cool is this summer, Rocket Lab announced that they would start doing, I mean, well, first of all, 2 summers ago, or summer 2019, Peter Beck announced at the Small Sat conference, actually here at Utah State University, he announced that Rocket Lab was going to start working on reusability. And it wasn't going to be the same way that SpaceX did. It was going to be, they were going to, use like a parachute. They were going to use their boosters to slow it down a little bit as it came back down through the atmosphere, and then use parachutes to slow it down even more, and then catch it using a helicopter and a hook, basically, and then dropping it back onto a boat to reuse it later. And that was really incredible to see that. And then this summer, they announced that their payload, or the amount of, stuff that they can put in space, just increased. So now they can go interplanetary, so they can go to different planets, and they can start supporting reusability, which was awesome. I loved seeing that.
And also, ULA was selected as the launch provider by Astrobotic. And
Yeah.
Astrobotic is doing this thing with like DHL where anybody can send something to the moon. And so I've already arranged to take all the videos I've done up into the middle of November, put them on a micro SD card, and send them on an Astrobotic ULA mission to the moon. So you'll be
Oh no
going to the
way!
moon.
Oh, I'm going to the moon! I had no idea. I'm so happy that I was able to have this opportunity. What a cool thing!
I know.
I love it. Can't wait till we go to the moon and find the microchip and can play them back.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. I worry about radiation and heat and stuff. And I'm like, those future humans are going to have amazing technology. They'll be able to reconstruct anything.
Anything, yeah. Oh man, yeah. There's some crazy hurdles we have to jump over to get back to the moon and be able to, I know that the goal right now is to create a sustainable lunar economy or even like a sustainable economy on orbit or somewhere else in space. And there's so many hurdles we have to jump through, but I know we can do it. I mean, we've done it before. We've done hard things before as a human race. So, I mean, what's this other than just, the next fun puzzle to solve, basically? And it's
Yeah,
exciting. It's really cool to be in the aerospace industry right now.
it's really funny to think about. In 1969, there's about less than half the world's population that we have now. They were less fed, less educated, less connected. They spent more of their time trying to provide for their normal necessities. They didn't know how to go to the moon.
Right.
And I mean, back then, I mean, you couldn't Google anything.
Right. Yeah.
You actually had to go. You hope somebody had a book, or
Yeah.
that somebody knew something, and you
Either
know,
that or you had to create it yourself.
yeah. And the thing is, it seems like even with this awesome capability, it's like somehow something's gone wrong, and we've like uh, kind of pitted it against itself, and it's like nets itself out. Like, I mean, it seems like we could do anything. We could go to the moon, we could go to Mars, we can cure climate change, we can have unlimited energy, and we could have everybody in the world could be fed, and the world could be clean, and but it's like somehow like this capacity is just like gone to sleep, or it seems so like at war with itself. I just wondering if you feel the same way.
I do. I feel like a lot of those things could happen if there were less greedy people in the world. If more people just had a little bit more compassion and empathy. Because a lot of it, I mean, we do have enough food to go around and, to feed the people of the world twice over, but we waste so much food in our grocery stores because, we don't want to buy the last bushel of, you know, we don't want to buy like the last head of lettuce that's sitting there in the grocery store because if it's the last one, you go, oh, what's wrong with it? I don't want to buy it. So they have to overstock just so that they can sell some, like enough. And there's all of these economic things into it or that go into it. There are all of these, psychological, just natural human tendencies with it. And it's the fact that all of us are so comfortable with living so comfortably that, to give up just a little bit to, take the extra couple of minutes to wash out a container to recycle it, or to take the couple of extra minutes to compost something and then donate that compost, or, take the couple extra minutes to look up a farm, like who provided your food so that you can be sure that you're buying from farmers that are acting sustainably. I mean, I feel like we have the answers. It's just there are too many greedy people, and it's we can go to the Mars and we can go to the moon if we wanted to. It's just there's not enough of that like money behind it. It's like, what's it going to give me? There's too much of asking that question, like what's it going to give me, rather than
What's
this
it
is
going
a
to
really
give
good
us?
yeah, what can I give to the rest of humanity? What can humanity be? It's classic. Who said that quote? Ask not what you can do for your country,
JFK.
or ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Yeah, not enough of that around.
You don't think America First captures the same sentiment?
America, it's gotta, if we're gonna go and establish these interplanetary economies, I don't think it's going to happen with one country working by itself. I think it's got to be a worldwide thing. I think
Yeah,
it's got to be a human effort, not just an American effort, if I'm being honest. But
well, you know,
it's just wishful
it's really kind of funny, right? Because in 1969, it was almost exclusively an American effort. And then when we land
thinking.
on the moon, we say we were here for all mankind, right? So it's like the effort itself was really nationalistic focus, but then the words were kind of embracing and,
Yeah, it's kind of
grandiose and what have you. But
yeah.
now we have with Artemis, we have ESA and Canada and Japan just announced today that they're seeking several hundreds of millions of dollars in budget to develop a vehicle to provide like logistics to the gateway and
No
develop a
way.
life support system and stuff. I mean, it's in the request. That they haven't gotten it approved yet, but I mean, it's.
Right. Another request. That's awesome.
I
I
know,
feel like
I
it's a
know. So now we are going to the moon as a collection of nations, but we got the
massive
words wrong.
humanity. Yeah, we finally are fulfilling the words. Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I had no idea. That's amazing. That's really exciting to hear. That's so cool. What the heck?
But
That's
when
awesome.
you look out like 500 years into the future, um, what do you think humanity looks like? And more importantly, where do you think humanity is? Is it just on Earth making little side trips to places, or have we generally learned to make space our home and branched out into the rest of the solar system?
500 years.
Which is not an arbitrary number because that's about how long ago it was that Columbus came here.
Wow. Hmm. That's a really good question. I'm really short-sighted, so I don't know. I have no idea. It can go one of two ways. We can either go and expand and colonize different planets and all of this stuff, or we're gonna end up just being our own demise because we can't get our stuff together and we can't be empathetic enough, or only the rich will survive, sort of thing. I don't know. It's a really good question. I would like to hope that we can go interplanetary and that it can be a humanitarian effort, or a for all humankind effort to get to other planets and do that kind of work and become a more unified species. But I don't know. I have a little. I might be a little pessimistic, but you know, humans have a tendency of proving each other wrong. So I hope I get the pessimistic side of me. I hope it gets proven wrong.
But
I would really hope that we can all branch together and decide that love and care and empathy are more important than making a buck off of a venture.
a lot of people who were like the first settlers to North America, um, they didn't come here because opportunities were so much better. They came here because Europe was so bad at the time.
Yeah.
Or,
So maybe that's the driving force.
I know, I know.
People always joke about it. It's like we gotta leave Earth. 2020's been too crazy. I'm going to Mars.
Yeah, and it's going to be really bad for those settlers. I mean, you can't walk outside without a spacesuit. You're always going to be on the limit of, well, you have enough food, enough air, enough water. You're going to be living in a very like this high tech poverty type of situation.
hmm
So yeah, a lot of people are like, hey, send me to Mars. But I think if you really look at what that life is going to be like, uh, I mean, but the thing though is, I think a lot of people might be willing to do that because, um, they prefer sort of like the natural, predictable, controllable risk over the man-made risk. Like
Yeah,
on Mars, you're not worried about, some type of nuclear war between China and the U.S. You're like,
yeah. Something control. It's only you. It's you against the elements. You against the celestial elements and your teammates, I guess. But yeah, it's you against Mars not having radiation belts. And that's not something necessarily you can control, but you can control that you go outside, so you can control that risk. But yeah, that's a good point. You don't have to have risk at someone else's expense, or someone else can't take risks at your expense, sort of a thing.
Yeah, and then also influence and control. The world is almost becoming like a monoculture in some ways, and there might be
Yeah,
groups that really feel like they're losing their identity, or feel like they're kind of being you know, infringed upon by kind of like the global embrace of society. You can kind of see some of those groups might be like, if we're going to maintain our identity, we kind of need a little bit more physical separation.
yeah. I would love to learn more about that stuff, that kind of stuff. I mean, being in school for engineering, it's really it's kind of absorbed a lot of my life, and I've always been super interested in so many different things. And I kind of can't wait to graduate and get a full-time job so I can take time outside of my job to really study, different cultures in the world, and this whole movement towards individualism, which is what we've done. We've gone from entire species as a unit to tribes as a unit to countries as a unit, down all the way down to the individual. It's, I mean, a lot of what our, at least Western culture is just being secure in your individual self. And you've kind of got like your clan, which are like your friends and your family, but even then it's like the individual is more important. And so there are so many cool things you can read into that kind of stuff. I wonder if it's detrimental to space to have such an individualistic ideology, or if it would be better if we were together more as like left the individualism and like went back to more of like your clan is your identity. I don't know. I'm just speculating, but fun ideas.
Yeah, and I think some people really crave that sense of belonging and being in a group, and they'd be willing to give up quite a bit of their individualism to kind of regain that. I mean, I think that's why you have like cults and, you know, different like,
Yeah.
fans and sports teams and all that. People really want to belong.
Yeah,
So they talk about the
kind of
ultimate
almost like the
belonging.
space industry.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's like the space industry. You join the space industry, and all of a sudden it's you and a bunch of nerds against the world.
Yeah. I mean, you have the brookies and you have the groupies. Uh,
Yeah. You got the Brookies, you got the Matthew Isakowitz fellows, you've got, everyone who's ever worked for NASA, you got the SpaceX fanboy.
I know. I think I'm in
A
that
lot of
last
different,
category, actually.
yeah, SpaceX fanboy.
Yeah, yeah.
They're doing cool stuff.
I know. I've been down to Boca Chica a few times. I went there a year ago, and just looking at the footage of what it looks like now, it's just like, whoa, that was not there.
They grow so fast and they work so hard. It's really impressive.
It is.
But
Well,
man,
if it was
yeah,
safe and affordable, would you go to space?
probably not, honestly. I know the I'm one of the suckers who makes the rock. I know the rich suckers who make their rockets. I'm not going up on that. I'm totally kidding. If it was safe, it was affordable. I don't think I would go for a long time. I would go. I like the idea of what Virgin Galactic is doing, where you can get the overview effect and you can see the curvature of the Earth and you can see Earth for 15, 20 minutes, and then you come right back down. I don't know if I would want to be up there for more than a week.
Have you heard
People
of
always they find out again.
have you heard of the space perspective?
I think so, but I'm not sure. Explain it to me.
So it's actually a group a company that was started by Jane Poynter and um, uh, um, I forget the other gentleman's name, but they used to be like originally they were like in the biospherians a long time ago in like the late 1980s, and they started Paragon Aerospace, and then they started Worldview, and now they started this the Space Perspectives, which plans to have like a 9-person pod that has a big hydrogen balloon above it, takes you all the way up to like 100,000 feet over the course of several hours, and you're up high enough in the stratosphere where you can see the blackness of space and the curvature of the Earth, and you could just get in, enjoy, and relax, and see the view.
That's
Uh,
I would do that.
you would do
That
that.
would be that would be awesome. I would love to get, a bunch of strangers together, maybe a couple glasses of champagne, and go and travel up in this balloon for a couple hours just to see the curvature of the earth. Can you imagine how close a friend you'd be with those people? Oh, it'd be so cool.
I
And
know.
that would be the ultimate experience, is not getting to see the curvature of the earth and the blackness of space, but getting to do it with other people. Like, that's the kicker for me. I love just the community. And that's really what space is about, right? It's less about individualism than it is, for the betterment of humanity. Let's do it for humanity. We got to learn about what our origins are. And it's about, people coming together and working hard to, achieve one goal. So it'd be so cool to do that with a group of people. That's
Have
my
you,
favorite part about it. I think
would you consider a 10-day trip to the International Space Station?
a 10-day trip to the International Space Station.
So less than 2 weeks.
Less than 2 weeks, barely less than 2 weeks, but I'd do it. Um, if I didn't have to go through all the rigorous training and, you know, just those trips are so hard. It's not a cakewalk by any means. I mean, launch is such a struggle. It would be a crazy, incredible experience. I probably would. If I had the opportunity, I think I would. I think I say that I wouldn't just because I don't know if I'll ever get the opportunity. But man, if I could, yeah. I mean, how could you say no? How could you
Um,
say no to that?
so have you
Amazing.
heard of Space Hero?
I don't think I have.
It's a reality TV show that's in the works where they're going to do a
Oh yes, I
global.
have heard about that. It's Bianca Vasquez is working on that, isn't she?
I don't
Bianca
know.
Vasquez, Pink Rocket ship. I
Oh,
think that's
okay.
her. She was doing this. Yeah,
Because
she's incredible. I've met her a couple times.
I know more about Ja from the University of Texas in Austin, who does a lot. He's an
Gotcha.
astrodynamicist. So I know he's involved with it. And then Axiom Aerospace is the group that's actually going to be responsible for training the winner and getting them to the International Space Station stuff. And they're like a real company. So I
Yeah,
think it'd be cool.
the my Brooke Owen, the class of 2019 Brooke Owens fellows were saying, like, they sent the link and they were like, oh my gosh, we all need to apply. We've got to get a Brookie on this show. That would be definitely fun. That's right. I was thinking about applying just for the fun of it. That would be
Uh,
a blast. Are you gonna apply? Have you applied?
I mean, right now they're except you could sign up for email list and you could sign up for the insiders program. I've done both. I'm like all for it. I think this is a way to get a whole bunch of people excited. You talk about sending
Yeah.
astronauts to the moon. They're like, well, what's the benefit? What's it going to do for us? What have
What
you?
do I get out
Yeah. And then you talked about sending people to space and suddenly all those things go away and they're like, how do I sign up? Where do I go? You know?
of that? Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
What a cool concept. Well, cool. I'm glad to hear that you've signed up for it. Well, my computer is about to die, and I don't know where the charger is. So
No
it's
worries.
been a pleasure talking.
But thank you so much. And if you know anybody else, I have like more than 1,500 days to go.
All right, I'm gonna get all of my friends to come and be on this. You're a joy to talk to. You were right when you said it was fun.
Well, thank
It's
you.
definitely been a really cool time. I've learned a
And,
lot for sure.
but I really appreciate it,
Okay, well,
Grace. And
good luck.
okay, you have a good
Thank
evening
you so
then.
much.
Bye bye.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Good talking.